from the Coupe de Carp and streaming around the world on blasttheradio.com, Twitch TV, and Facebook Live, engaging you in conversations about the hot topics of the day. The number to call is 613-413-2217. And now, the legendary Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com.
Thank you, John. You remember your first teenage love, John?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is it a pleasant memory?
Absolutely. And we're still friends to this day.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget. Her name was Rita. I don't think I was quite a teenager, probably 11 or 12. And I had this thing. This is in Aurelia. I'm in grade, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that. And I fall in love with Rita. And I had a bicycle that had, remember we used to have the wire baskets on the front of the fender? Did you ever have one of those?
Absolutely, the best.
Put your school books in there,
Yeah.
stuff. Anyway, my basket rattled. It wasn't firmly attached to the front fender, so I'll never forget. I get a whole roll of black tape, and I tape up the whole bottom of this basket so it will not rattle. And then I proceed to bicycle about 5 times past Rita's house, hoping that she will see me and not be offended by a rattling basket. I never saw her.
Aww.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that just never happened. I have no idea where she is now. I can't even remember seeing her in school after that. I was so disappointed that she didn't make an appearance after. I'll never forget that. All the work I spent the whole afternoon taping up my basket, make it soundproof. Teenage love. Oh my goodness.
We do that as guys, though, don't we? We like noisy engines and subwoofers in our car to amplify the bass and.
Of course, the most famous thing we did, certainly in small towns, this was in Brantford, and so I'm obviously of age to drive, and up and down, we had 2 main streets, one way each way, Colburn and Dalhousie, in Brantford, Ontario, Wayne Gretzky's hometown.
Yeah.
So down Colburn, up Dalhousie, down Colburn, up Dalhousie, all night long with about 3 or 4 guys in the car. I don't know what, just up. And now everybody, apparently in all small towns, that's what all teenagers did. Up and down the main street, back and forth, back and forth. And like if we ever did see some, I guess the girls must have been walking along the street, hoping that, we would pass them in the car. What was supposed to happen, I have no idea. But I must tell you, the most embarrassing thing, not for me, but for a young lady, a very attractive young lady, she was quite attractive. And we remember the sock hops in the school gyms. We used to take our shoes off and we would dance in the gyms, right? You ever do that, John?
Sock hops? No.
No sock hops for you?
No.
No sock hopping. Well, so we had this dance, and this very attractive young lady, I asked her to dance, and she had the whole dance, and her head was on the wrong shoulder. Well, I saw her years later, and when she saw me, she said, "Oh, my God, Lowell, you have no idea how embarrassed." She said, "I bore that embarrassment for years, thinking that I spent the whole dance with this guy." She said, "I really wanted to dance with you, too, but I put my head on the wrong shoulder."
I didn't know there was a difference.
Never forget.
No, my era of dances, it was slow dance. It was hold on to each other's hips, and then you just sort of shuffle each other around. There's no finesse to it at all. It's awful. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's about as close as you could get to a young lady in those days. It's obviously changed considerably now.
Yep.
I'm not sure for the better. On a more serious matter, not that teenage love isn't very serious. By the way, talking about the sock hops, did you never go to a school dance where the guys all lined up along one side and then the girls on the other side?
Oh, the Sadie Hawkins dances.
Really?
Sadie Hawkins, I believe, is what they were called.
Sadie Hawkins. But the Sadie Hawkins was when girls were supposed to ask the guys.
Oh, right. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. You got to get your days straight around here. But I can remember this was pure torture. Okay. So you're lined up with all of the guys on one side of the gym, and the girls are on the other side. Now you see this little girl that you want to ask out to dance, but you know that in order to do so, you're going to have to pass this whole row of guys, okay? And of course, as you walk by, the guys are all giving each other a jab. And, oh, watch this, watch this. And then you have to walk by all of these girls, and they're all, oh, you know, I hope he's not going to ask me, you know, oh my God. So finally, I'll never forget. Embarrassment of all. I do this. I finally get up the nerve to walk all the way past these guys. They're all rib jabbing each other. Past all of these girls are all, you know, what's he going to ask this young lady out? And I said, would you care to dance? She said no. Didn't even say thank you. So I said to her, you know what? I really didn't want to dance with you anyway. And I walked all the way back. Oh, my God. You know, some people say they'd love to go back to teenage years.
Nope.
Not me. Nope. Not me, sweetheart.
Nope.
It was pretty painful,
yes.
Believe me. Mind you, some adult years have been pretty painful too, right? We all know about that, right, John?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We can't go back, and thank God for that, I think.
I have to ask a question, and we have to get serious now.
All right.
I have to ask a question, you know, and believe it or not, I've never asked this question before, at least not this directly. The question is this, and I'm talking to all of our listeners, viewers. How much of the global warming scare do you believe is real? I mean, we've been warned that if we don't lower CO2 emissions drastically, the planet is essentially going to burn up in 11 years. Do you believe that? We've been told that the oceans are soon going to rise and flood cities like New York, Halifax, Miami, etc. Do you believe that? Do you believe any of the global warming stuff? Or do you think the stories, at least for the most part, are vastly exaggerated? So do you discount it entirely, or do you discount a good chunk of it? Now, I mean, these are very serious questions because, I mean, our entire world is being turned upside down in an effort to lower global warming emissions. Doesn't matter what country you're in, virtually. Entire industries curtailed or shut down, and not just here in Canada, tens of thousands of people around the world, millions, thrown out of work. Manufacturing drastically changed, revised. Talk, for example, of scrapping all gas-driven vehicles, just as one example. Billions spent on windmills, solar panels, carbon taxes, increasing the cost of living drastically everywhere. It's changed the entire lifestyle of certainly of the Western world. It's increased the cost of living to a point where, I mean, when I first raised my daughters, not that long ago, I mean, in most homes, the man went out, he made the bacon, and the woman stayed in the home. I'm not saying that was an ideal situation. I'm simply saying that that's the way it was, because all we really needed in those days, 30, 40 years ago, was one income. It's very difficult for a family, certainly a family of 3 or 4, to survive on one income today. I don't know how you do it. Well, unless you're, you know, a member of the Liberal Party or something. But you understand my point. That this whole chase to lessen or eliminate CO2 has just absolutely turned the world upside down. All because we are warned that if we don't do this, we're going to destroy the planet. So do you believe any of the warnings, the threats? Do you believe some of it? And let me be very frank here. I'll tell you exactly what I think. In my opinion, there's no question the planet is warming very, very gradually. I mean, it's been warming for over 10,000 years. This is a fact. A lot of people still don't believe this, but it is a fact. And I mean, there's all sorts of evidence that stares us in the face every day. Some 10,000 years ago, believe it or not, right over where you now sit or stand or whatever, or drive, was more than 1 mile of solid ice. In some areas in Canada, there was 3 or 4 miles high of ice. So gradually, the climate warmed, the planet warmed up. The ice gradually melted over thousands of years, created a huge sea, the Champlain Sea. We know there was a sea because limestone is as we all know, the remnants of ancient coral reefs. If you are driving the 417, for example, the Queensway, and you're coming into Canada, you come up over a ridge. That ridge is limestone. That ridge is an ancient coral reef that was at the bottom of the Champlain Sea. Champlain Sea was there because there was a huge glacier, mile-high pile of ice over top of us, gradually melted. Now, there were no humans around in those days. So it was not human-induced global warming. So, yes, there's no question that the planet has been gradually warming, very, very gradually, for thousands of years, and probably will continue to do so until, I guess, when the next ice age comes in. We're not sure what causes the ice age, but, I mean, these things nature has a way of repeating itself, right? So sooner or later, probably another 10,000 years or so, I don't think you or I'll be around, John, we'll probably have an ice age. But for the time being, I grant you, the planet is warming very, very gradually. But the question is, there's two questions, really. Do we humans play any role in that whatsoever? And if so, how significant a role? And secondly, is it really a threat? I don't see the threat here. All the stories about flooding, starving millions, and worse, I think are either greatly exaggerated or they are threats that are non-existent. I always use Florida as an example. Now, I did some work this morning, John. What do you think the average difference is in temperatures between Miami and Ottawa? Just take a wild stab at it. The average daily temperature difference between Miami and Ottawa.
Boy, so
any idea?
We're factoring in all 12 months of the year then.
Yeah.
14 degrees centigrade.
Well, you're actually not that far out. The difference in average temperature between Miami and Ottawa is 16.1 degrees. The average yearly temperature in Miami, believe it or not, is 24.9. Now, this is all, I mean, if you don't believe me, you can Google it yourself, okay? Don't take my word for it. Google it. The average daily temperature in Miami is 24.9. The average daily temperature in Ottawa is 6.6. Did you have any idea it was that cool? Average temperature. So my point here is say, well, what's this got to do with global warming? Well, 3.5 million Canadians flee to Florida every year to escape the cold. So 3.5 million, and if they could afford it, I'm sure a lot more Canadians would flee to Florida. My point is that even though the average temperature in Florida is 18 degrees greater than Ottawa, they seem to live fine in Florida. In fact, I'm reading some advertisements. They're telling me that it's much healthier in Miami. It's much healthier in Florida. They say the climate is much healthier. People live longer, et cetera, in Florida. So what the question here is, hey, wait a minute. If it's 18 degrees on average warmer in Florida than it is in Ottawa, why would an increase of maybe 1 or 2 degrees in Ottawa, why would that be harmful to us? That's what they're telling us, that in 10 or 15 years, the average temperature of the Earth will increase by 1 or 2 degrees. Well, maybe, I mean, if the average temperature, I suppose, is 100 degrees someplace, then 1 or 2 might make a bit of a difference. But, geez, it's here in Canada that we're suffering so much. Would warming this planet up by 2 or 3 degrees really hurt Canada? Oh, my goodness. So if 18 degrees, anyway, I've gone through this. I don't understand. I believe it's to sum my feelings up, and I want to hear from you, okay? Phone, email, text. How much of it do you believe? Do you believe it all? Do you believe that it's exaggerated? Do you believe that we humans are contributing to it? And I guess maybe most important of all, do you think that it's going to be harmful? How is warming Canada by 1 or 2 degrees over the next 20 years, is that going to be harmful? John, we've got some text coming in here. Good.
We do. And for the record, if you'd like somebody to go to Florida for, I don't know, an entire winter or something and get back to you on how life is in that kind of climate versus this, I'm more than happy to do that for you, sir.
Just You're prepared to be the guinea pig.
Once I get the vaccine, I am good to go. Anyway, listen, we'd love your phone calls at 613-413-2217. Lowell is now on YouTube. Lowell is on Twitch. Lowell is on Facebook. All of your links can be found at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Also, you can ask your smart speaker, Alexa and Google, to play Blast the Radio, and the show will pop up when we are live from 2 until 2:30. All right, some of the comments we've got so far. Terry says, still waiting for that acid rain. Tim says, the whole thing is a scam. Peter says, hucksters used to talk about acid rain, just make rich scam for Al Gore, David Suzuki to get wealthy. Ray says, China, India, and Russia not cutting emissions. Rick says, if you want to know what motivates the global warming
let me just stop you right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but that doesn't. If I could ask people to please address the question here, saying that China and Russia. I appreciate you. You're absolutely right, but that doesn't answer the question. I'm really very interested because I'm actually writing a column now for a British newspaper on this very thing, and I would really like to get some of your comments. The questions that I think are really important. Do you believe that global warming is occurring? If so, how serious do you think it is? Do you believe that humans are causing any of it? Do you think that most of the stories are vastly exaggerated? And finally, do you think that it is harmful? As I say, there's not much question. It's gradually warming, but we're making all of these changes, costing ourselves these billions and billions of dollars with the assumption that it's very, very harmful. Do you believe that? How much do you believe? Okay. So, John, once again, the number that for people. So please, if you wouldn't mind, on this occasion, at least, if you could just sort of answer the questions that I'm asking, please. Yes, John.
I'll make sure to pass on all the comments that you don't have on your Facebook as well, so you've got those for your column. On Twitch, Carrot says, vastly exaggerated. Used to be global warming, but because of some places are colder, they had to change the name. The warming and cooling is normal cycles. Don't forget how many more people are on the Earth now compared to 100 years ago or even 1,000 years ago. We've got a text at 613-413-2217. Lowell, volcanoes have been spewing out all kinds of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and all kinds of other gases for millions of years, and all of a sudden, all the eco-nuts are trying to blame climate change on fossil fuels. Have you noticed most of the climate change scientists all work for the United Nations and want carbon taxes to pay for their jobs?
That's fine, but how much do you... So let's just go through the questions again, okay? If you could please respond to these, I would really appreciate it. Do you believe any of the stories? Do you believe that there is any global warming whatsoever? Do you believe that we humans are affecting it? And do you think it poses a danger? Those really are the basic questions. All the other comments are welcome, but if you could address those questions. And what I'm really asking is, okay, we've heard all of these terrible stories. How much of it do you believe? Do you think any of it's real? Some of it's real? Do you think that we humans really are? And by the way, talking about humans, talking about all the additional humans, I hope you realize that we humans inhabit only about 4% of the Earth's surface, right? People often don't agree with that, but just check it yourself. I mean, about 80% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. The two poles take up a good other chunk. So actually we humans inhabit, and then the deserts and the mountains, etc. We humans inhabit very, very small part of the planet. Shields. We talked about this before. Now we're talking about once again here as a consequence of the scare about global warming. The carbon tax will be increased on April the 1st. That means it's going to affect the cost of everything, including the cost of appliances. And even more importantly, when we're talking appliances, the fact is that the government rebates that have been in effect in appliances end at the end of this month. So Mark Shields, God bless him, Shields Appliances there in Pakenham, has sent me a little note saying, Lowell, please let your listeners know that the government rebate program ends the end of this month. And I'm adding the fact the carbon tax goes up on April the 1st. So if you're looking for any kind of an appliance, big appliance, major appliance, a whole raft of appliances, one appliance, whatever it is, now is a good time to do it. You'll save yourself a ton of money, okay? Just go to shields.ca. You'll see all of the products there, all listed, the prices, and the government rebates. Just remind you, they end at the end of this month. Yes, John, more emails coming in.
Yeah, Chrissy is watching on Twitch. She says earthquakes, hurricanes, icebergs breaking, tornadoes, more often happening, so I believe something is changing in the world's climate for sure. Anthony says, answer to all your questions, a resounding no. Terry Toll, I believe about 30% of it. Sharif says, if my skin is white, my DNA say I am Jewish, Egyptian, Kenyan, and Moroccan. I am white, black, or what is it? My name is an Arabic name. I am discriminated against in Egypt because I am Christian in Canada, because that has nothing to do with our...
Can we deal with the topic today, please? On another day, Sharif, you can complain about racism, but let's talk about global warming today.
My apologies, Lowell. I didn't see that. I cut and pasted
No problem. No problem.
Ray also says no for all answers. So overwhelmingly, I'm getting a sense of no. They don't believe all the hype.
But do you believe, I mean, there's no question that the planet is warming up very much. But by the way, you might also be interested to know, if you really do the research, you will find that the number of tornadoes, and yes, even the number of hurricanes in the past 10 years is below the average, okay? Particularly tornadoes throughout the United States. Now, every time there's one of the things that's really changed, and I think has added to a lot of the scare, are weather-only channels. A number of years ago, we didn't have channels that depended upon the weather. And of course, the way to build ratings on weather channels is to have some really bad weather. You get out there and you lean into this vicious wind and you take pictures of swirling signs and so forth and cars being swept away. We didn't used to have that. So every time there's a hurricane, tornado, or whatever, the media just descends on it and it appears that it's much, much worse. But it is not. The facts are there. They on average, the last 10 years have been below average for the past century on the number of tornadoes, and just about average when it comes to hurricanes. Folks, I don't make this stuff up. All you have to do is, spend some time. You go to Google, you see all of the different sites. I'm talking about university sites. I'm talking about government sites that you can believe. Yes, you got more comments here, John? Yes, please.
I do. Bob answers your question. He says, no, I don't believe. Darlene says, I think global warming is vastly exaggerated. I think humans are most likely responsible for some detrimental effects on the planet, but I honestly believe the Earth is cycling as it always has. Martin says climate change is the new religion. Everyone has to join and contribute financially. Carrot says the only way humans are the cause of it is by our numbers, breathing out. And an email to lowell@blasttheradio.com from Rob in Carlton Place, who says, I believe in the science that is greenhouse gases get trapped in the atmosphere and reflect the sun's rays back to Earth, causing a warming effect. That's where it ends. That science has unfortunately been hijacked by environmentalists, left-wing politicians, and social justice warriors to further their activist causes. I do not believe for a minute that we have the ability to predict the temperature of the planet 50 years from now, nor do I believe that we can predict what the overall effects will be if the temperature does change. I certainly do not believe that Justin Trudeau or Canada will have any effect on global temperature.
The other thing that people aren't responding to, and which I think is very important, supposing that the temperature of the planet does increase 1 or 2 degrees in the next 10, 15 years, how detrimental will that be? It certainly will not be detrimental here in Canada. If people in Florida thrive in that climate, I repeat, a lot of people don't think about this. The average temperature in Florida, certainly in Miami, is 18 degrees higher. This is the average daily temperature, 18 degrees higher than it is here in Ottawa. So that would indicate to me that the average temperature of Ottawa could go up 18 degrees and we would love it. We'd be able to pick lemons from lemon trees. We'd be able to go out in our backyards and pick oranges. We'd be able to swim almost every day of the year, play golf every day of the year. If we had the same, what would, now, I'm not suggesting that it would ever become like Florida, but what they're trying to tell us is that an increase of 1 or 2 degrees would just be fatal for us. Do you believe that? I'm having a lot of difficulty believing that, folks. Yes, John, more emails coming in.
Yep, once again, the number here is 613-413-2217, and you can text it as well. Barry says, Lowell, I think climate change is a perpetuated hoax. If climate change is happening, it's a natural cycle of change that our experts cannot figure out. Richard says the North Pole is shifting, so the weather will change. Anthony adds, yes, the Earth is warming. How many ice ages have there been? And how many warm or hot ages have there been? The Earth goes through cycles, warming and cooling. Jim says the left totalitarians love it because the remedy is more taxes, as if the silly carbon tax we have makes one bit of a difference to the climate. And Rob in Carlton Place follows up. He says, I believe the planet may be warming. I don't believe we can actually predict the temperature 50 years from now. It is not an inconvenient truth. It is a convenient lie. Rob in Carlton Place.
Yeah, but is it harmful? My feeling is that, holy smokes, if Ottawa the average temperature would increase 18 degrees, we would have Florida-like weather. Now, you point out, well, if Florida increased 18 degrees, they'd be in trouble. Yeah, but nobody is predicting an 18-degree increase, okay? We're talking about 1 or 2 degrees, they say, in the next 10 years. So how harmful would that be? Is this really worth turning the world around upside down, throwing tens of millions of people out of work, changing the way we live, changing the very fabric of our life? Those are questions that I'd love more people to comment on. I've got a comment talking about the carbon tax once again. Centennial Glass, my other sponsor, thank you very much. I'm not sure if there are government rebates, as I've told you a number of times. If you're not sure about what government rebates or whatever may be available from the federal government as far as home repairs, give Centennial Glass a call. If it has to do with glass, they will have all of the answers. But this I do know, and that is that as of April the 1st, the cost of everything, you can be damn sure, including the cost of glass and the cost of workmanship, is going to go up because the carbon tax is going to be increased 50% April the 1st. Thank you, Trudeau. So please, you're in the market, and I think I said this on Friday or maybe yesterday. Look, if you got a project, you're thinking of new windows, doors come spring, or some other home renovations, new whatever. Might be not a bad idea to give Centennial Glass a call right now. Come in and get them to give an estimate. They'll give you an estimate now before the prices go up, okay? Just not a bad idea. Yes, John, more emails coming in. Good.
Yep, and by the way, if you're watching Lowell on Facebook, could you share the video on your timeline so the word gets out that Lowell is still doing his thing? We sure appreciate that, your friends and family, and that also increases the amount of opinions that we get, and we value those
Precisely.
as well. Nancy says, I think it's over-exaggerated to make people notice and start conversations. Nina says, and we wouldn't have to worry about a pipeline. Rick says, if you stare out the window, you'll agree that climate changes. The difference now is that we're being charged for it. David says, when I believe or don't believe things, I look at the source of the messages and I think, does it make sense? I don't believe it makes sense. And if it comes from the woke left, I am skeptical. So the answer is no.
So it doesn't believe in it at all. But the Earth, I think the evidence is there. I think most people know that the planet is warming very, very slightly. I mean, it's been warming for 10,000 years. I repeat, folks, 10,000 years ago, there was a mile-high pile of ice over your head. All right. It's a fact. And someone earlier was saying, how often do we have ice ages? It would appear that about every 10,000 years, because the most recent ice age is about 10,000 years ago. And the ice age prior to that was about 10,000 years from then. So we may be due for another ice age. I don't know. But if it happens, it'll happen so gradually. I mean, it takes thousands and thousands of years. John, have we got any more comments here? We still have a lot of people not really addressing the key question.
Yeah,
here.
no, all is quiet right now on the front.
Do you believe any of it? How much of it do you believe? Do you believe that we humans are affecting it? And if there is some global warming, do you think that it's harmful, that there is danger from it? The number, John, once again, to call is, or we'd love to have a phone call, yeah.
No kidding, right? I'll call 613-413-2217. The number is on your screen if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube. That number right there is the number to call, 613-413-2217.
So what I believe, and I'd like people to comment on this, I believe that there will be some gradual changes, in the decades to come as the globe gradually warms. But I am convinced that rather than bankrupting ourselves trying to fight it, what we should be doing instead is learn how to deal with it, to use it to our advantage. It certainly would be to our advantage in Canada, all of the northern climes. And what we got to do, we humans have gone through unbelievable stuff in the years. I mean, we have always survived, okay? We've always found a way. Even with COVID, we're finding a way with the vaccines. What we need to do is find whatever means are necessary in order to live with whatever global warming we have. And I very much doubt if it's caused by humans or has any real major effect. As I say, we humans inhabit less than about 5% of the Earth's surface. The effects of climate change, I think, would be minimal in this country, would actually be beneficial. So to sum up, yep, the planet is gradually, very slowly warming, as it has been for 10,000 years. I don't believe humans could possibly affect the Earth's climate. I believe we should continue to clean up real pollution, clean up our air, clean up our waterways, as we have been doing. Hey, when I was a kid, the smog used to be so bad in Britain that they had to drive around with lanterns in the daytime. That's all changed now. I can remember smog so bad coming in from Toronto, living in Brantford, that we had to turn on the streetlights in Brantford during the day. This was all of the stuff from Toronto, etc. So we've cleaned up a lot of that. We should continue to do that. But global warming, we have a phone call. All right. Who's on the phone?
As he said, you asked for it. Barry, you're on with Lowell Green.
Hey, Barry.
G'day, Lowell.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good topic. Yeah, I think a lot of our warming up is due to weaknesses and changes in the magnetic field above the South Atlantic and the South Pacific. Because this is where, like the South Atlantic, that's where a lot of the big hurricanes come over to affect the U.S. and the tropics. And in the Southern Pacific, that's where all the El Niños and Il Niños happen, whether it's warming or cooling.
All right, we're right out of time, Barry. Let me ask, do you believe that the planet is warming?
Well, maybe a little bit, but not enough to be severe taxes and being charged for it and everything else.
Do you think? Okay. Excuse me. Do you? Sorry, we're right out of time. Do you think that we humans are affecting the climate in any way?
No.
Do you think that if the planet is warming, and you're saying that you believe it is, do you think that it's going to be harmful or anywhere near as harmful as they are telling us?
I don't think they really have any idea, Lowell. It's like a lot of other things that scientists can't really explain, but, like I pointed out in one of my texts there, that a lot of these climate change scientists are contracted by the UN, and they just want carbon taxes to come in so bad so they can.
Final question. Sorry, right out of time. Final question. If we warmed up to Florida weather, would you hate that?
No, I wouldn't hate it, but I think that kind of warmth would bring on things that we're not used to up here, whether it's invasion of insects that we don't normally have. We could have a problem even with insects because we're so outnumbered by them, and we're losing a lot of birds that eat insects. But it could upset the natural cycles of nature, I think, if it happened to extreme amounts.
Well, nobody is suggesting. I just threw that out as a joke. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, Barry, that every year 3.5 million Canadians go to Florida for the warm weather. Thank you all, folks. We have to go. We're way over time. Thank you all. We'll be back.
You've been listening to the legendary Lowell Green on blasttheradio.com. Connect with the show at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Find the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. Lowell is live weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on blasttheradio.com.